Hi, Dr. Becca here with Del Mar Center for Behavioral Health. I wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about mindfulness. Mindfulness has really become a buzzword or something that people talk about a lot. And I think that it's not always as well understood, or we use the term very imprecisely. Mindfulness is not something new. Mindfulness has been around hundreds of years back in Eastern religion and philosophy. And it's the idea of being in the present moment, non judgmentally. I think that's the key, right? Because it's the idea of being in the present moment. So I'm not worried about what could happen next week, right, which is all up here. And I'm not worried about things that happened last week or 2 years ago, right, still up here. We're then in the future or the past, and we're not in the present moment. So one of the big goals of mindfulness is to be here in the present moment. I'm sitting in this room. I'm talking about mindfulness. I'm trying to look at the camera instead of looking at the picture that I see, right? Because when I look at the picture, I'm noticing that my hair looks funny, or I didn't put makeup on this morning, or that it's a blank white wall behind me, and all of those things have judgments associated with it. So it's too boring behind me, or it's in the middle of winter, so I don't have any color to my skin, right? And so all of those things have judgments, and they bring me out of this present moment. And when we're not in the present moment, we're really missing out on a lot of things, right? One being information, because when we're sort of half in our mind, worrying about what might happen or making judgments about what we see, we're missing out on information that's in the environment around us. So I might miss a beautiful sunset when I'm driving home and thinking about all the things that I could have done better that day. Or I miss out on danger, right? That the kids are playing with a playground ball near me and I'm not paying attention, and so I get hit in the face with the ball. So there's a safety component and an enjoyment component to not being in the present moment. Really robs us of the experience. And it's also very normal. So let me say that too. It's very normal to be thinking about all of the things that we want to happen or don't want to happen, or all of the things that have happened that we didn't want to happen. It's interesting, we don't usually go back and revisit all of the great times, right? We usually go back and think about the things that we could have done better, or the things that didn't go well. And when we're thinking about the future, a lot of times we will worry about what might go wrong in, instead of thinking, gosh, I could wake up tomorrow and cure cancer or win the lottery, right? We usually worry about when I'm meeting a new person, they might not like me, or they might not understand me, and I might feel uncomfortable. And all of that takes away from the present moment. And the present moment is really all that we have, right? And so the idea behind mindfulness is to be in this moment, right here, right now, without judgment, and just noticing what's happening around me. It isn't good and it isn't bad, it just is. There's probably going to be things that are desirable and comfortable and things that aren't, and that's okay, and that's normal, and that we don't have to act on that, right? Because that idea of mindfulness is being in this moment without judgment. When I'm not judging something, I don't feel compelled to move or do something different. I'm just accepting things as how they are. It's also very normal, like I said, to get away from being in the present moment. And so, what do you do when you notice that your mind is drifting? Oftentimes, people say, well, Dr. Becca, I can't even do mindfulness right. Well, let's not turn this into something else that we beat ourselves up about, right? Let's use this to say, I am perfectly imperfect. I am a human. I am learning a different way of being in the world. I'm 36, right, at the time of this video. So I've got 36 years of thinking about things a certain way, and it's going to take time for that to change, right? Nothing happens overnight. And so be kind and compassionate to yourself as well as you're trying mindfulness. So you notice that you are having thoughts about what you need to do, or what you need to get at the grocery store, or you snapped at somebody, or you got frustrated, right? And you just say to yourself, self, I'm being human. And you can choose to let that thought continue, or you can choose to let it go, right? We have the power to choose our thoughts. We can decide which thoughts I want to spend more time thinking about and which thoughts are not helpful and are not helping me get any closer to my goals. And I can choose to let them go. When I'm first introducing the idea of mindfulness to kids or teens and adults too, I use what was introduced to me, and that was the idea that you can picture your thoughts on leaves, and you're sitting by a stream, and those thoughts are on leaves, and when you have one, you can choose to pull that leaf out or let it swim around you, or you can choose to let that leaf go down the river with the current. It can just float on by, right? Another visualization is of the thoughts on clouds, and that's one's my favorite. And your thoughts are sitting on these clouds, and you can let them drift on by if they're not helpful and they're not helping you get closer to your goals. Doesn't mean you're anything other than human, and that your mind is used to going a mile a minute, and that you're used to having all of these thoughts. In mindfulness, you can notice these thoughts, right? I'm noticing that I'm having this thought, and I can choose to either entertain it and spend more energy fueling it, or I can decide to let it float on by. Both are okay, and you are in control, and you get to decide which of those you want to do. And then when you notice that you're out of the moment, which also happens a lot, you can do a quick technique called grounding, which we'll talk about in another video. But grounding is essentially like it sounds, getting grounded in the present moment. When we are up in our mind, we're not in our body, right? And so what we want to do is bring our awareness, bring our attention back into our body. So grounding, I'll tell people to notice one thing with each of their senses. So that's sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. And so I'm sitting in my office right now, and so I'm noticing the sound of, we have a bubble wall, and I can hear that in the distance. And I can smell what one of my wonderful colleagues had for lunch. I can taste a little bit of coffee, right? Because that's the last thing I had to drink. And I see this wonderful yoga sculpture that I got for one of my other lovely colleagues that she has on her desk. And I can touch, I'm wearing corduroys, it's freezing here in North Carolina today, and I can feel the ridges on the corduroy on my pants. Right? So these are all of my senses, and I'm now noticing what's happening around me. You can also pick 5 things that you see or 5 things that you touch. You can pick one sense, but the idea is to come back in your body. If you're interested in learning more about mindfulness, you can look up Jon Kabat-Zinn. I'll put his name underneath the video here on YouTube, and we will do more videos about this. Mindfulness has been shown in research to be super helpful for a variety of different challenges: anxiety, depression, PTSD, stress, chronic illness, right? It's about being in the present moment with no judgment, and it has found to be really helpful. Again, it's being in the present moment, being here in your body without judgment and noticing what's happening around you. Again, I'm Dr. Becca, and I'll talk with you soon.